Over on the Ring of Fire channel this week, I have talked a lot about the sentencing of the Capitol Rioters. So if you haven't checked out those videos, I do encourage you to do that. But nevertheless, if you haven't seen them, let me give you a quick refresher on all of that. Report came out this week showing that out of all of the Capitol Rioters that have been sentenced so far, very few of them are actually being given prison time. And as we reported months ago, judges have already expressed their, exasperation with prosecutors for not going hard enough against a lot of these alleged Capitol rioters. Reducing the charges before it even goes to trial, letting these people enter into plea agreements where they avoid jail time when the judges clearly thought, no, this person, based on what I've seen, based on what the evidence here, really did deserve some jail time. So the judges were exasperated. Prosecutors were getting a little lazy, I guess. But according to yet another new report out this week, because apparently we just have tons of reports about Capitol rioters sentencing, they're about to start getting a little more tough. As we approach more of these cases in the coming year, federal prosecutors have decided they're going to start going harder on these Capitol rioters. So for those who've already had your trial, your plea agreement, whatever it is, y'all got off easy. Those still awaiting trial, probably not gonna be so lenient. Let me read this. This is from the Wall Street Journal this week. In the riots' wake, prosecutors searched for tools to evaluate some of the cases beyond the misdemeanor charges often applied for unruly but far less momentous Capitol arrests. They turned to a provision in the 2002 Sarbanes Oxley Act, enacted after the accounting fraud scandal and collapse of Enron, which imposes a potential 20-year sentence on those convicted of obstructing an official proceeding. The measure expanded what counts as obstruction and closed loopholes used by people involved in the Enron fraud. So, prosecutors have offered to drop additional charges for some of the rioters if they plead guilty to that count and accept a punishment that would likely involve more than 3 years in prison. Several have taken the deal with at least 2 sentences to date along those lines. Others have rejected those conditions, specifically the enhanced sentence requirements, and are opting instead to go to trial. Here's where things get interesting. Last week, 2 federal judges in Washington separately rejected arguments that the crime described in the 2002 statute wasn't appropriate. The term official proceeding means a proceeding before the Congress, U.S. District Judge Amit Mehta said. A straightforward reading of that definition easily reaches the certification of the Electoral College vote. So, to put this in layman's terms, what prosecutors are going to try to start doing more of in the future, and they've already had limited success with it so far, is instead of just saying, okay, you were trespassing on federal property, that's a misdemeanor, let's get you some community service, let's get you probation, and then you're on your way. Instead, they're going to say, by going into the Capitol, by the act of trespassing, you are also obstructing the official duties of Congress, and according to the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, we could pop you with 20 years in prison for this. Now, it's unclear why, of course, prosecutors would want to go this route. Do they really want to start sticking these people in prison for 20 years for entering the Capitol? Well, I think what is happening here, and of course this is just my opinion, we're getting overwhelmed. We've had 50 sentences so far. There are literally more than 700 individuals that have been arrested for this based on this particular report. Over 700. So you have hundreds and hundreds of cases still awaiting trial. So what would make it easier for the prosecutors, for the judicial system as a whole, is for prosecutors to approach these alleged suspected rioters, because again, they haven't been convicted, so they are alleged, and say, listen, under these provisions, we could take you to trial, we could seek a 20-year sentence. Or go ahead, accept this plea deal, admit you're guilty, and we give you 2-3 years maybe. Sounds like a pretty sweet deal for these individuals. But the flip side of that, and this is what we always have to be careful of, just to play devil's advocate a bit, a lot of these individuals don't have the money to pay for lawyers. They're relying on public defenders. So Public defenders, as we know, overworked, underpaid, huge caseloads, don't typically have the time to spend on a single case that a private lawyer would be able to do. And it would be a shame if these individuals accepted the plea deal because they didn't understand, or because their lawyer, their public defender, was too overworked to do it. So that is the other side we do have to be careful of. We do not want these people accepting something just because, they may not be able to properly defend themselves. So I do have to throw that out there because, unfortunately, I'm still not a horrible human being, and I do have empathy for others, even those who did this, some of them. So that's where we're at. That's what we can expect more of in the future. And again, just my personal opinion, I think it's a way for prosecutors to clear out a lot of these cases by getting plea deals instead of having to go to trial hundreds of times in the coming years.